A long time ago, there was a discussion in the Beis Medrash about 30 years after the destruction of Beitar. Three of the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva discussed the attitude that we're supposed to take to the government that ruled over the area of Israel. Rabbi Yehuda said to his colleagues, "They've done terrible things to us, but they've changed somewhat. They've made the land more livable. They built roads and bridges. They made it more accessible for people to bring their produce to market. They made it easier for people to earn a living. So now we have to give them credit where credit is deserved. They did some good things. Now we have to praise them for their good things." Rabbi Yossi was silent. Why was he silent? Because Rabbi Yehuda said the truth. But there was another side that he knew that Rabbi Shimon would articulate. So Rabbi Yossi kept silent. He kept his opinion to himself. Rabbi Shimon said to Rabbi Yehuda, "Wait a second. What do you think was the reason they built those bridges? And what do you think was the reason they built those streets? Do you think they built the bridges for us or the streets for us? We are the beneficiaries. We have benefit from that. But the main beneficiaries are themselves. They didn't do it for us to make our lives better. They built a bridge to collect tolls. They built streets to put movie theaters, amphitheaters, and Rav Shimon used houses of prostitution, bathhouses and houses of prostitution. Streets were made for their own pleasure, not for commerce, not for the benefit of the population living there. And therefore, we should not give them any respect." The argument between Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Yehuda is an old argument. Do we go by action or do we go by intent? And of course, both are important. Action is important and intent is important. The question is, does action overpower the intent, or does the intent change the nature of the action? In other words, if I'm nice to you because I want to take something from you, then the whole niceness is only a method of me stealing from you. So the niceness has no value. Everybody knows that. But when you have an action, the action has possibilities of negative effect, but you don't intend the negativity, you only intend the positive. Does the fact that you wind up doing something negative, is the act independent of the intent? Does the act define the intent? Does the result define the intent? Is the intent secondary to the action that we do? We should evaluate the action. There are many details. There are many, many discussions about this in the Talmud. Very simple one is, it's a hot day, and I have this beautiful oak tree. It's about 75, 80 feet in width. And under this oak tree, in the shade of the oak tree, it's about 10 degrees cooler than out in the sunlight, in the sunshine. And I wish to take a chair and put it underneath my oak tree. The chair is slightly heavy. I might drag the chair. I might not be able to carry it. I might have to drag it across the earth, and in the process make a small furrow, a ditch, which is prohibited on Shabbos. My intent is I don't need the ditch. The ditch is actually destructive for me. But it's possible I could put some seeds into that ditch. They would grow. So the ditch has got some value. The question is, do I go by the act? I created a ditch. Or do I go by the intent? I had no intent of making a ditch. Rabbi Yehuda says it's prohibited because I might make a ditch. Rabbi Shimon says it's not prohibited because I don't intend to make a ditch. In order for it to be a prohibited act, I must intend to do something prohibited. So Rabbi Yehuda values the act itself. Rabbi Shimon values the intent. And the intent defines the act. Therefore, the Romans, whose intent is just to make things better for themselves, for their own pleasure, everything that they do is not a good thing. It's a selfish thing. Well, this discussion found its way into the public by the man of a man named Yehuda ben Gerim, who was a convert, sons of converts. And by discussing this matter with his family, word got to the Romans. And they said, well, Yehuda was positive, so we're going to put him in charge of, he should be the chief spokesperson for the Jewish rabbis. Rabbi Yossi, silent, so we're going to have to put him in exile. Shimon, Rabbi Shimon, who disparaged us, should be killed. Rabbi Shimon ran away. First he ran into the Beis Medrash, and his wife would feed him at night, secretly. After a while he told his son, listen, if they torture her, she'll give up our place. She can't help herself. That's what will happen. Let's run away where she can't find us, so she wouldn't know where we are. They ran away to a cave. She couldn't find them, so she couldn't give over their place to the Romans. Romans couldn't find them. They looked for them, but they couldn't find them. They ran into a cave deep in the hills of the Galilee, in a place called Giscala. In Hebrew, it's called Gush Chalav, the mound of milk. In other words, cheese. It's a cheese mountain. It's not a cheese mountain, but it looks like a mountain of cheese. Gush Chalav has many interesting trails and has a fissure a crack the side of one of its hills. That crack was very deep, and it's not visible to the outside. Apparently, foliage covered it up. And Rabbi Shimon was there. There were no lights, but also no food. So it says God made them a fountain for water, and a tree burst out in that cave. Carob tree. Carob trees have very deep roots, go down almost 90 feet down into the ground. So this carob tree, its roots were deep in the ground, and there was some light that came into the cave and created enough light for the carob tree to create carobs. So he ate carobs, and he drank the water from the well. And for 13 years, that's all they did is study Torah. When they came out, they were like angels. Couldn't understand why people were working for a living when God provided for them. The end, Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai sees Yehuda ben Gerim. And he says, this guy's still around? This is the guy who, because he repeated what I said, got me almost arrested and killed. And he looked at him, and Yehuda became a pile of bones. And that's the end of that story that the Gemara brings down concerning the miracle of Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, who is the author of the Zohar, and today is his birthday and his day of passing. And on this day, he reached the highest level he could, a human being could possibly reach. And he said that I can bring forgiveness for the whole world till Mashiach comes. The question is, why could he not find something good about Yehuda ben Gerim? Why was Yehuda ben Gerim punished? So when I was a young man, I said it was because Rabbi Shimon had gotten out of the cave. Miraculously was not discovered and survived miraculously for 13 years. Yehuda ben Gerim should have heard that and say, wait a second, I was the one that caused that. Caused him to have to run away. You could have been killed as a result of me. I got to come and ask forgiveness. He didn't do so. Because he didn't do so, that was indicative that perhaps he thought he was right. That he didn't agree with Rabbi Shimon in the first place, and his not agreeing with Rabbi Shimon caused Rabbi Shimon such anguish. But I find that hard to accept. It's not, Rabbi Shimon was not a vindictive person. He tried to find positive things from other people, from other Jews. What was wrong? There's a very famous statement of Rabbi Shimon that Jewish rabbis had to answer to the popes, to the cardinals, to the priests, to the Gentile world. Rabbi Shimon says, who are the people that brought horses for the chariots of Egypt? All the horses died. Who provided horses? The answer is those who feared God. They feared God when God warned that if you keep your animals out, they will be destroyed first by a pestilence and then by the hail. So those who feared God, their animals, their horses, survived. And they gave their horses to Pharaoh to attack people of Israel. Mikan Omer Rabbi Shimon, from here, Rabbi Shimon says, you learn from here, Toiv shebegoyim haroig, the best of the goyim you shall kill, you should kill. It's a very, very harsh statement. And the great rabbis of the Middle Ages were forced to try to answer that. And I'll try to answer that. Rabbi Shimon wasn't talking about all the goyim in the world. Rabbi Shimon was talking about the goyim, the nations that rule over Israel, that abuse Israel, that are tyrants and are tyrannical to Israel. And the word goyim is a euphemism for the government of Rome. Tov shebegoyim, those goyim who not only rule, but treat Israel with tyranny. The best of them are selfish and wish to kill Jews, and therefore we have to understand who our enemy is. Don't consort with them. Don't reveal anything to them. Don't become friendly with them. That was the opinion of Rabbi Shimon Yochai. Yehuda ben Gerim was a great man. He also came from converts. That should make him a person who we have to have compassion for, because he chose to be Jewish. Yehuda ben Gerim apparently still had sympathy for the people he came from. And because of that, could not accept what Rabbi Shimon said. It isn't just that he disagreed with Rabbi Shimon halachically, he disagreed with Rabbi Shimon in his analysis of the governing bodies of the Romans who did so much harm to the people of Israel. Rabbi Shimon's analysis was that as long as a tyrant behaves like a tyrant and has people who support him in his tyranny, doesn't make a difference that they have some goodness in them. Toiv shebegoyim haroig. If you are part of the tyranny, you're a horrible person. Yehuda ben Gerim believed that he could play footsie with the Roman governorship. And it was this closeness that allowed for the governor to find out about Reb Shimon and to attack him, to persecute him. But it wasn't Yehuda ben Gerim's fault, but Yehuda ben Gerim not only disagreed with Rabbi Shimon, but he actively went against it. He actively believed that you had to consort or you had to deal with the government in some form, in some positive way. He agreed with Rabbi Yehuda. It wasn't just that he agreed with Rabbi Yehuda, he disagreed vehemently with Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Yehuda understood that intent is important. The most important thing is the action. Rabbi Yehuda ben Gerim found it hard to believe that people who seemed to be conscientious and compassionate, that somehow or other they were part of the evil system. It goes back to what happened with Hamas. The people who voted for Hamas are sympathetic to Hamas. And therefore, they're saying this in Israel, and I'll say it here. The people in Gaza unless they reject Hamas or Hamas. They can be sympathetic. They can cry. Women cry when something happens. You hear their cries. Those cries, it's not crocodile cries. They're crying because their loved ones are dead. But they're pro-Hamas. The people who try to make peace with Hamas were murdered on 10/7. The people of Kibbutz Be'eri were people were beheaded. The horrific actions were done with people who thought that they could consort with them, be friendly with them. These are our neighbors to the south, our cousins. Rabbi Yehuda ben Gerim actively was an activist, apparently, believing he could create a bridge with the tyrants. And Rabbi Shimon saw in that a great danger. The danger was, as the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says, that if you go and consort and come close to the powers that be in government, the end result will be bad for you. The end result will be bad for Klal Yisrael. Because all they want is to pump you for information. All they want is to know what's going on so that they can terrorize and brutalize you. The people who went into Kibbutz Be'eri, all they wanted was to see how they could attack those people and who they could murder. So the point being, Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai saw that Yehuda ben Gerim was dangerous. His attitude was, yes, you can trust some of these guys. Some of these people are compassionate. And Rabbi Shimon says, Tov shebegoyim haroig doesn't mean goyim, all the nations of the world. He means those goyim were part of the tyrannical regime that's oppressing you or they're trying to destroy you. By getting close to them, you're just allowing them to destroy you. That's the stupid leftist ideology in Israel who thought that they could do business with Hamas, thought that they were just misunderstood. And Rabbi Shimon saw that there would be a 10/7, something of a calamity if people followed Yehuda ben Gerim with his attitude. And that's why he had to be eliminated, because he was dangerous. And so this is Lag BaOmer. This is a day when we have to decide what we're supposed to do. The world, there's some people who do nice things to Jews. But if their intent is only for themselves, only to promote themselves, only to make things better for themselves, then don't put your trust in them. Trust only in God. I know that that sounds radical for a person who's considered to be a conservative, but I'm not a conservative or a liberal. I worry about the Jews. And I believe with what Reb Shimon says. I don't say Tov shebegoyim haroik all, I say Tov shebegoyim, the best of Hamas has to be killed. The best of the Muslim Brotherhood has to be killed. The best of ISIS has to be killed. The best of the mullahs in Iran have to be eliminated. That's what Rabbi Shimon says. And his words are just as meaningful today as they did 1800 years ago.